How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie, giving you the goods on a very wild and wacky Week 3 in the National Football League. We saw a team put up 70 points yesterday. We saw a Super Bowl favorite lose to, in many people's estimations going into the year, the least talented team in the NFL. We saw a Lambeau comeback. We've seen the Swift-Kelsey memes that are going to be going berserk on social media. Crazy, crazy week. And I am going to start everything up with the AFC East. Make it a point, please like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. Buffalo Bills circling the wagons in the nation's capital. Jets players lose game. A Jets fan lost some teeth. And Dolphins putting up 70 leaves the league in disbelief, as I already mentioned. Going to start it off in the nation's capital. Pretty much since being shut down by the Jet defense and having a very flat performance, Josh Allen has definitely recaptured his fantasy value as well as the direction of his team. I think some of the outside noise and the negativity of hearing about all the issues with him and star wide receiver Stephon Diggs have been kind of pushed to the wayside. I think it's all about winning in Buffalo, and that's what's going to keep that relationship intact. Buffalo Bills look like a focused team, undeniably. I was a little surprised that the Commanders had such an issue with being at home, and honestly, the most important game with these two franchises since Super Bowl 26. Really, what's up, Daniel? Good to see you here. Really just a shocker, bro. Really just a shocker to see how flat and how unprepared the Commanders looked yesterday. I think this was a statement game and an opportunity for them to assert themselves as a player in not only the NFC, but first off the division, and they didn't succeed. I said on many a show, these interconference battles between the two East divisions could shape up who's winning specific divisions, because both of these divisions are actually very strong right now. Another meme-worthy thing, in addition to Taylor Swift and Kelsey, is a Jets fan going viral, losing a tooth while cursing and screaming some expletives at embattled quarterback Zach Wilson. It's been very ugly for the New York Jets since the loss of Aaron Rodgers 4 plays into his season. Kind of what to expect over the past few years, especially in a Tom Brady-less Patriot/Jet rivalry. Defensive struggle, running game, every yard at a premium. But the Patriots continue to find a way to beat the Jets every year. This is a 15th straight victory for the New England Patriots. And it came at a much-needed time as they were winless going into this. If I'm a Jet fan, I've got to be disgusted right now, because ultimately they are in the same position as they were last year at the quarterback. Not to mention that the other two veterans that were on the roster are not contributing now, that being Flacco and White. It's a nightmare on offense for the Jets. And it's truly a shame, because they do possess a championship caliber defense. I believe the one redeemer for the Jets is that with Rodgers not meeting a certain incentive of games played with that Green Bay trade, the Jets do keep their first, and it's like a silver lining in a dark cloud. But the Jets just look horrible right now. Truly horrible. Yes, sir. They do need Diggs. We're going to hit on them as we move along. What's up, Mom Dukes? That man, yeah, it was. Let my viewers see some of these comments. Yeah, it could be a potential pride game for Zeke. No question about that, Mr. Nunez. Back to the Haps. Yeah, the New York Jets are in trouble, guys. They do not have any answers at the quarterback position. And the defense is going to get tired with a certain team in Minnesota being 0-3, and with the tank for Caleb possibilities, I would definitely be contacting the Minnesota Vikings to see if there's any way that they can afford to make a deal for a Kirk Cousins to not completely lose their way this season. Vikings are going nowhere fast. After losing all of 4 games last year in the regular season, they already have 3 losses now, 3 weeks in. And, I alluded to last year them being paper tigers. They are definitely a candidate for tanking to get younger at the quarterback position. I'm not putting this on Kirk Cousins. But, yeah, unbelievable. The Jets definitely got to move on from Zach Wilson. He's just not it. But I'll tell you about a team who is it. The Miami Dolphins putting up 70 on the Denver Broncos. This literally looked like a Madden game on easy. Tua Tagovailoa is continuing his early drive to be the favorite to win the league MVP. And it's a hell of a story when you consider his injury history and what he went through last year, and really opened the eyes of a lot of fans to the ugly part of the business with not putting your player's safety first. That's an issue that I take with the whole organization. But as the team goes, Devin Achan as well as Raheem Mostert just won off together. This is a team that didn't have Waddle. They just did it on every facet of offense. And right now, after what I saw yesterday, undeniably, they have to be the favorite at the moment in the AFC to represent that conference and to make their first Super Bowl since the early 80s against Joe Montana's 49ers. That was Dan Marino's second year in the league. AFC East is looking very intriguing. I still think New England, if they want to keep pace, has to figure out a way to possibly trade for a number 1 receiver. I do think their defense is very good, and I believe if they're able to get a number 1 receiver for young quarterback Mac Jones, things could get a lot easier for them. Friend of the show, Brett Bandick, will tell you a million times they needed to make that Hopkins deal happen. Going to move it along to the NFC East. The Arizona Cardinals win a shocker against the mighty Dallas Cowboys. Tonight in Tampa, the Eagles will be making a trip on primetime, part of a 2-game situation for Monday Night Football. The Washington Commanders and my New York Giants right now standing together in last after losses to the 49ers and Bills. Already spoke on the Bills. Going to start this in Arizona. As many of you know, the Dallas Cowboys lost their best corner, All-Pro Trayvon Diggs, in the beginning of the week. I think from an emotional standpoint, it definitely affected this team. And I do believe that in a game like that, in a situation like that where you lose a huge cog to your defense, you need your offense, predominantly the quarterback, to step up. And yesterday, that just did not happen. And, going into this season, a lot of people viewed the Arizona Cardinals as a team that was going to be just flat out awful and not going to be able to compete. And they were going to be the guys tanking to get the number 1 pick. But I do believe that Dobbs is the right man for the situation. No, they are not a perfect team by any means, but they did compete with the Commanders week 1. They had a 20-point lead against my New York Giants. And yesterday, quite frankly, the Dallas Cowboys did not meet their intensity as they were able to pull off the upset. They improved to 1-2, get their first victory on the year. And I'm going to say it right now. If I'm the Dallas Cowboys and you know what the expectations are and the opportunity that is potentially in front of you, I think you have to comb through NFL rosters and you need to find a potential replacement this year for Diggs, a good cornerback on a bad team. There are players out there that could be had. I think Dallas needs to make that deal to, give themselves the best chance to win that elusive Super Bowl. I do believe that they have a championship caliber roster, but you don't just replace a player like Diggs and think everything's going to be all right. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes. Philadelphia Eagles, who are currently 2-0, they are the defending NFC champions, making a trip to upstart Tampa. A lot of people did not expect the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get off to a 2-0 start. No surprise for Philly. They are one of the league's elite coming into the year. But a concern for Philly over the past couple of games, which they both won, is allowing teams to stick around in those particular ball games. I think the Eagles are going to have to clean some of that up, undeniably. I like the home team tonight. I said it on my prediction show. I think if this game was played later in the season, the probability would be that the Eagles win. But I think this early in the year, Tampa's feeling pretty good about themselves, and their defense is looking similar to what they put up a couple of years back when they won the Tom Brady's final Super Bowl. I like Tampa for the upset, the home upset. I think they're going to pull the game off. I really do. I like Tampa tonight. Not necessarily a panic or concern for Philadelphia. When you're a defending conference champion or when you're a Super Bowl champion, you're going to take every team's best shot. And right now, I believe Baker Mayfield is really gelling with the duo of Chris Godwin, and especially Mike Evans. I believe that they are both putting in work with their quarterback, and he's kind of resurrecting his career. And quite frankly, this was his last opportunity to do that because he got kicked around after his time in Cleveland. The organization in Cleveland basically chose Deshaun Watson over him, paid him the big money, and Baker was kind of lost for a little bit. But I think right now, in the early going of this new NFL season, it's quite the story. And I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a pretty good football team. And through the first couple of weeks, we'll see how it pans out tonight. I think they're currently the best team in the South. Not basing it on record, just talking about the eye test and what I see. I believe the Tampa Bay Bucs are a pretty good team right now. And I think as of right now, they are my pick to win that particular division and represent the South in the playoffs. Swift Kelsey. Going to hit on this. It's honestly the main topic coming out of Arrowhead because the Justin Fields-led Chicago Bears just look hapless. Chargers finally getting a dub in the Twin City, and Devontae Adams questions Raiders culture after a primetime defeat to the six-time world champion Pittsburgh Steelers. And, you know, guys, when you lose by 50, like the Broncos did, is it time to tank for Caleb? Russell Wilson, not trying to take a crap on the guy, but he is not a spring chicken, and he has not looked great since putting on that uniform. I'm going to start this up in KC. I just think it was a great job of Patrick Mahomes distributing the football to all his different weapons. I really like what they were able to do, and it just shows the measure of a championship caliber team. After the week 1 defeat, when they didn't have Chris Jones, who was still in a contract situation, and with Travis Kelce dinged up with the knee situation, the offense looked lost. Kadarius Toney, many a meme, dropping a lot of footballs, as well as Sky Moore. They've cleaned that up, and it's the weirdest thing. Sometimes a play or two can change your season around. When Jacksonville refused to punt in week 2 and gave the Chiefs an opportunity to take a halftime lead after the Chiefs were making many mistakes in their own right, I believe that the Chiefs somewhere in that locker room talk, the end of the second quarter, found their confidence. And now they are back to being the defending world champions and coming in with more confidence and a heightened expectation. Now, make no mistake, the Bears are not a very good football team right now. They've proven that through the first 3 weeks of this NFL season. And this is going to be an interesting thing to monitor if this is also going to be a team that is going to tank for Caleb. They are now 0-3. Justin Fields, a lot of fantasy owners are furious that they spent that draft capital on him. He is just not evolving into the quarterback that I think many people expected him to be. And I don't think he's safe past this year to hold down that quarterback position. It's crazy because when you think about the NFL being a pass-happy league, particularly more so than ever for the past 20 or so seasons, and the fact that the Chicago Bears still cannot find the true franchise quarterback, I mean, you even in the one Super Bowl they did win, the iconic 85 Bears, Jim McMahon won some games, but on today's metrics and standards, he would not fit the bill as a franchise quarterback either. It is incredible how this is a team that just cannot figure that position out, similar to my New York Giants with figuring out how to get a functional O-line together. The Bears have suffered from just getting the right quarterback. It's early in this young man's career. I don't want to put a death nail on it, but he's just not that good right now. I think that getting off the hot seat just a little bit for Coach Staley was huge as the Chargers finally got the dub over the Minnesota Vikings. I'm not sure if anything's fixed. 0-2 is not a death nail. You can come back from it. But I will say this. Anything short of a playoff berth and a playoff win will cost Coach Staley his gig. I don't know if the right man is ready in-house with Kellen Moore, but the Chargers got to start stringing some wins together. When you look at that roster and you look at the just overall talent everywhere, offensively and defensively, they got to do better. Mike Williams, knee injury, we're going to be keeping an eye on that to see how severe. I hope for his sake it is not that bad. This is a great football player who has been marred by injuries going back to last season. Last season, in a game that he didn't have to play in, he was injured and he missed the playoffs, which really sucked. As far as the Las Vegas Raiders go, man, Davante Adams is not happy. He went there for less money to reunite with his great friend, Derek Carr, last season. Derek Carr is now a member of the New Orleans Saints, and the Raiders currently have Jimmy Garoppolo, who, in my opinion, is not the best gap to get the best out of Davante Adams' skill set. Davante Adams showed some frustration last year pushing a cameraman, losing a tough one in Arrowhead. He's he is showing more frustration after a tough Sunday night loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm starting to question if Davante Adams is going to try to push his way out of Las Vegas. It's crazy. For one, I didn't think he'd leave Green Bay. And for two, when they made the investment to bring him into Vegas, I didn't think they were going to separate him from the main player as to why he arrived in Vegas. But similar to a Randy Moss, another disgruntled future Hall of Fame receiver playing for the Raiders. And I think the Raiders have got to figure out if it's worth keeping him around, because it is becoming evident that there could be a lot of friction with him and the quarterback, and that's just never a good thing. Raiders are in trouble. When you're questioning the culture and the commitment, it's going deeper than just losing the game and getting frustrated, because now you're going at those that are the leaders of the team, whether it be in the front office or whether it be head coach Josh McDaniels, who I will say this, he might be retained, but it might not be the right move. I have never felt that Josh McDaniels was a good head coach. I think he's more of a great OC. Moving it along to the NFC West, give you guys an opportunity to read the ticker as I read it back to you. The 49ers enjoy Sunday after convincing win over the Giants on Thursday Night Football. I'm a Giant fan. That one hurt. Can the Rams have similar success tonight after going after Joe Burrow as they did in the Super Bowl a couple of seasons ago? And after a Week 1 defeat to those Rams, the Seahawks are looking rather fluid. Definitely an easy victory against the Carolina Panthers. Arizona Cardinals are definitely the shock of the day, beating the Cowboys. I'm going to start this off with the 49ers. As I already stated, they won the Thursday night game. Short and sweet. Right now, this is the most complete team, offense, defense, in professional football. Barring mass injuries, I think this is a team that should be representing the conference. They were my preseason pick. And even without Brendan Ayuk this past Thursday, when you have a three-headed monster on offense of a Christian McCaffrey, a Deebo Samuel, and a Brock Purdy who just keeps getting better, this is a team that is just tough to beat. You know, Shanahan is just a great play caller. And defensively, thus far, they have not lost a lot with the departure of DeMeco Ryans, who is a damn good defensive coordinator and is trying to start his own winning culture with the Houston Texans. I think tonight the Rams are going to win this ball game against the Cincinnati Bengals. And I also think what's more troubling is I'm still questioning if Joe Burrow should be in the game. You know, we've been seeing conflicting reports about them potentially shutting him down for the season, and he's actually going to be in action. Going back to Week 1 against the Browns, going back to the preseason, which was the calf strain to begin with, I feel that the organization is not protecting their quarterback. And by marching him out week in and week out, I really think you're taking a big chance of getting your franchise investment hurt. He got paid big money right at the start of the season. And I understand that this is a team that has aspirations going in to compete for a Super Bowl. And this is a must win in terms of this year. I get it. But when it comes to that kind of money, that kind of investment, and that kind of talent, I think you got to protect your quarterback from himself. He is a true competitor, and none of these guys want to miss ball games. But you have to protect your investment, even if it means making a sacrifice for one season. They got to think big picture. I hope Joe Burrow is able to stay upright. But when I look at the resurgent Aaron Donald, the surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest defensive players of this generation, just getting after it first 2 weeks out of the gates, looking fresh, looking spry, looking motivated. And this is a Rams defense that I've playfully said it's Aaron Donald and the no-names. They are playing good football right now. And head coach Sean McVay is getting quite a bit out of Matthew Stafford despite Cooper Kupp being injured. This Rams team is motivated. They're playing decent football. They got Cam Akers out of town, and it looks like they found the right answer at the running back position all in the while. I think the Rams are going to win tonight, and I just hope for Joe Burrow's sake he's still standing at the end of the game and not injured, because right now I just don't think he's healthy enough to be competing at the level that he needs to compete at. The Seattle Seahawks, week one, definitely came out flat at home. But since then, with the overtime victory in Detroit, yesterday's victory against the Carolina Panthers, this is an offense that is starting to find their wings. And reigning comeback player of the year, Geno Smith, while I don't think he is the permanent answer, he is doing enough right now. They are winning. Do I think this team is necessarily a threat to the San Francisco 49ers? It's tough to say. It's early. But I do think that minimum, you're looking at a wild card appearance. Going into the season, that was my NFC Championship pick, Seattle at Frisco. But I have backed off that pick somewhat after seeing what the Dallas Cowboys looked like through the first 2 weeks, torturing the two teams of MetLife. Now with the Diggs injury, we'll see if Dallas can respond and how they can respond. It is definitely a week-to-week league. As the Seahawks go, good win, and they'll be looking for their third win next week on Monday Night Football against my New York Giants, who are in desperate need of not just a primetime win, but a win in general. I think there is an outside chance that running back Saquon Barkley may play. And once again, similar to how I stated the Joe Burrow business, I am not 100% sure if that would be the best thing to do, considering that it's a big investment. Not as big of an investment as a Burrow, considering that they put him on a franchise tag. And I know Barkley wants to hit certain incentives to make sure that he gets paid. But when you're entering the free agent market next year yet again, even if it means you miss out on a little cash and you miss out on some games, you have to think about yourself. And similarly to the Cincinnati Bengals, I think the New York Giants have to protect that player from himself. He's a prime competitor. As a fan, of course, I want him out there. But as a human being, I don't want him out there just to get injured and to come back untimely. And that's where I stand on that. But how about the Arizona Cardinals? I said it earlier on the show. Dallas did not meet their intensity. And, it's a classic trap game. It's not panic time for the Dallas Cowboys. But I must admit, after 3 weeks of seeing this Arizona Cardinals football team without Kyler Murray, Dobbs is their quarterback, I don't believe that this team is as far or as lost as projected. They've competed for 3 consecutive weeks, winning one of those 3 games against a very fierce NFC East. I think the Cardinals are a lot better than projected. And I think the only reason why this game isn't going to get spoken about even more is just seeing Miami put up 70 points yesterday, which was all kinds of absurd. As the Cardinals go, there's no reason to believe that they still shouldn't finish in last when you consider the toughness of that division. But this is a feel-good win for them and a former East rivalry, because once upon a time, even though geographically speaking it didn't make sense, the former Phoenix Cardinals were a member of the NFC East. And we already know that Dallas, geographically it doesn't make sense. but they are an iconic franchise, and there is no way they would ever leave the East, nor would I want them to. AFC North, I already spoke on the Cincy Rams game. Steelers get another gritty victory to improve to 2-1. Every time I think that this team is not going to be okay, Mike Tomlin always manages to get just enough out of them to prove me wrong. Going into the season, I predicted that this would be the first losing season of Mike Tomlin's career. I'm sticking with it for now. They are 2-1 at the moment, getting a much needed win over an embattled Raiders team. I don't like what I'm seeing from those Raiders. I already mentioned it. A lot of turmoil in that locker room, and it's just not a good thing right now. I think the team made a fatal mistake by letting go of Coach Rich Bisaccia, who was on the interim level when John Gruden was canned for many controversial emails. But I do believe that, a win's a win in this league, and you take them as they come. After an emotional victory in the Nick Chubb game over the Cleveland Browns, the Steelers do it again. And, it's not perfect. But one thing that I got to give these Pittsburgh Steelers in the early going is they don't quit and they never panic. After getting their doors blown off in front of the home faithful by the San Francisco 49ers, they have recovered quite nicely. I do believe that this particular division is literally up for grabs. What I also found crazy is that in Baltimore, the former home of the Colts get a victory in their former hometown. And you're not used to seeing Justin Tucker miss the difficult kicks. You just naturally assume he's going to make them because he's been doing it for so long. And I believe that people take him for granted of how good he and how great he has been. But that's just what happened, coming up just a little short as regulation expired. And Matt Gay of the Indianapolis Colts kicked them to an improbable victory. I did make mention on a previous show that I thought Gardner Minshew still gives the Colts a chance to compete. He is a proven veteran in this league, and that is exactly what happened. It's interesting right now. The Indianapolis Colts are 2-1. It's early. Nobody wants to overreact still in the month of September. But without Jonathan Taylor, they're still competing. They have a stingy defense, and I do believe that they have two good quarterbacks on the roster, and that's always a healthy thing in a quarterback-driven league. Thoughts and prayers go out to Nick Chubb, as many of you know. Just a horrific injury similar to what he suffered during his college days. I wish him the speediest of recovery and prayers for the least amount of complications. I think it was really a good touch as his former and current teammate Kareem Hunt recently resigned because of the injury. Comes into the facility wearing a Nick Chubb jersey. Definitely a great show of class on Hunt's part and a move of solidarity for his football brother. As the game goes for Cleveland, I didn't expect them to come out this sharp. This is the best football game I've seen Deshaun Watson play since he was a member of the Houston Texans. So you got to keep an eye on these Browns now, because just maybe Deshaun Watson is finally turning the corner. I believe that they do have a championship caliber defense. And if the combination of Ford and Hunt could even remotely mimic the combination of Chubb and Hunt from years prior, the Browns might just be all right. Deshaun Watson is the key, though. He has to continue to play at this high level. He looked good yesterday. As the Tennessee Titans go, Mike Vrabel literally had his hand covering his face out of pure frustration. This is a franchise, the Tennessee Titans, similar to the Chicago Bears, that I think has wasted too much time trusting Ryan Tannehill with the car keys, so to speak, to the offense. When you have a generational talent in a Derrick Henry, who is aging but still a premier player, didn't have a good game yesterday, and you have a future Hall of Famer in DeAndre Hopkins, you got to get the right quarterback in there. And I understand that for years, the Tennessee offense has been run first on the shoulders of Derrick Henry. But in a quarterback-driven league, you need an upgrade. And I think we've come to the conclusion, and so has the Titans organization, that it's not going to be Malik Willis out of Liberty. It continues to hold them back, and they are not going anywhere without a sufficient quarterback. And it's not going to improve this year. They're not going to do anything different there. I also think this could be Derrick Henry's final year in Tennessee. We will see how that goes. NFC North got a cool story regarding this. Friend of the show, Robert Johnson, shout out to him, made his first trip in his lifetime to Lambeau Field. It was a lifelong dream. And as a devout football fan myself, and as a son of one of the biggest Packer fans that ever lived, it hit a chord with me for just happiness for him. He has been through so much this past year, but just a man's man, a great human being. And I'm very glad that he was able to live out a lifelong dream of going to Lambeau and seeing his team take care of business. When I saw the game was 17-0, I truly felt bad. I was like, man, they got to win for this guy today. Unfortunately, quarterback Derek Carr for the New Orleans Saints was injured, shoulder. We'll see how that plays. And the Packers were able to basically shut down the Saints after being down 17-0. The narrowest of margins, winning the ball game 18-17. And this is a Green Bay Packers team that, were it not for a last-second field goal against the Atlanta Falcons, would be undefeated. I don't think they're missing Aaron Rodgers on the level that many expected. And this is a team that has just as good a chance as anyone to win this North Division. Matt LaFleur is a good coach, people. His winning percentage is up there with the likes of Curly Lambeau, Mike Holmgren, and the great Vince Lombardi. So Green Bay has been blessed to always figure it out at the quarterback position. It's been a big theme of this show, talking about these quarterbacks. Jordan Love, in every aspect, looking the part. I'm proud of that young man. It's so difficult to replace a legend like an Aaron Rodgers, but he is doing quite the job in the early going. And as a team, you got to tip your hat to the entire defense to stick around in the game, to make just enough points to beat the Saints and come back. Whenever you're down 3 scores in a football game, it is a steep hill to climb, and they did it. So you got to give them credit. Packers are definitely one of the surprises this year. And, it's always cool to see teams picking themselves off the mat after some roster changes and galvanizing as a team. And I think that's exactly what the Green Bay Packers have done this year. But, yeah, definitely happy for my friend Robert Johnson. He was in all his glory. Awesome to see. The Detroit Lions, who in my opinion is the biggest threat to the Packers this year, those are the two that you got to watch out for. Previously unbeaten Dirty Birds catching their first L against them. Jared Goff, after leaving the Rams, definitely the opportunity to rewrite his story. And I like what Detroit has going on. This is a team, in my opinion, that should probably be 3-0. Instead, they are 2-1. They did beat the world champion Chiefs, an undermanned Chiefs team week 1. Last week had the heartbreaker in OT on Barry Sanders Day. But they were able to respond nicely. A lot of fantasy owners definitely frustrated that Josh Reynolds played, but basically put up a goose egg. It did not affect my fantasy team because I had some blow-up performances. So playing him did not hurt me. As the Falcons go, nothing to panic on. This is a young team that is gradually learning how to win. They are not quite where the Lions are yet. This Lions team has been together a little bit longer, and this Lions team is expecting to win. Coach Dan Campbell, who early last year was actually on the hot seat, galvanized this team, had them playing hard at the end of the year, even though it was a game that didn't mean nothing to them in terms of playoffs ending Green Bay's season. I think what they've done through the first 3 weeks of this year is an extension to how they ended their season last year. The Detroit Lions, definitely, in my opinion, the favorite to win this division, but don't sleep on Green Bay. AFC South, Minshew, Mustish, man, can. Huge fall in Duval for the Jags. CJ Stroud enjoying his first victory. And Vrabel looking helpless, as I already mentioned, is his seat warming up. I'm going to start with the coach, and I'm going to run it back to the other topics here. Quite frankly, I believe that Mike Vrabel might be the first coach to get fired this year. I don't wish it on him. He's a guy that I have a lot of respect for going back to his playing days. But when I look at this Tennessee Titans team, and I said it already, I just don't see them in a position to vie for a title to get better. They were my pick in this division early on, and this division is so unpredictable because right now the Colts look like the best team in the division through 3 weeks. I was a year off on my prediction. Last year I had them winning that division. But it's not so much. If you win a mediocre division, as we've seen over the years, sometimes you could win a division with a losing record. Washington 2020, Tampa last year. This year, this division looks like you could have a team just under 500 winning, maybe just over 500, but not convincingly good. And that right now is what the AFC South is looking like. In a lot of people's estimations, this was the year where the Jacksonville Jaguars was supposed to make the real big jump. And Trevor Lawrence looked more like the guy that was with Urban Meyer yesterday than he did looking like the guy in the playoff comeback last year. The kid still makes a lot of mistakes. I don't know if it's a lack of focus. I don't know if psychologically the way that they lost to the Chiefs, I mentioned earlier on the show, not punting, allowing the Chiefs back in the game might have done something to them. But after a road victory in Indy, they have 2 consecutive losses in Duval, and it is not looking good right now for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But you got to talk about the other team right now. I mentioned DeMeco Ryans leaving the 49ers to follow his dreams and passions of being a head coach in this league. And yesterday, the Houston Texans defense was everywhere they needed to be, making life miserable for the Jacksonville offense. And CJ Stroud getting his first career victory, looking like he belonged on that field. It's always kind of cool and interesting when you see a guy get their first professional win out of college. But the Houston Texans are definitely scrappy. We saw bits and pieces of what they could be under Coach Lovie Smith, who I think did a hell of a job last year with them. He was in a no-win situation. He was basically a stopgap. But getting DeMeco Ryans in here, I think this is a team that's taken on the attitude of their head coach. They have a lot of roster filling to do, but they play hard. And in this division, any of these teams can win it right now. Going to talk about the NFC South on the way out. Tonight is an interesting and intriguing game. Battle of 2 unbeatens. I already made mention how I believe that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to win this football game. Going to be a fun one. We have a Super Bowl rematch from a couple of seasons ago, and we got that game. So Monday Night Football doing pretty good in terms of the storylines for these games. New Orleans Saints. I hope Derek Carr is all right. I mentioned he did get injured in Green Bay. Right now, they'll be welcoming back Alvin Kamara after his brief suspension. Much needed. He's going to have to get out there. I made mention already that I believe, although the Falcons suffered their first blemish, they're going to be quite all right. Carolina, as expected, they're not really supposed to be competing all that much this year, and they are my pick to finish last. But just a reminder to the viewers, tonight I do have the Rams and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the Monday Night Football games. Talked to the guys earlier today. Spoke to my man Idris as well as my man Brett. Possibly going to go live tonight during the Monday Night Football games. Just kind of have some open-ended convos. And just looking to have some fun with it. I'm still kind of getting used to Monday Night Football doing these double headers. I like it and I don't like it because I almost feel like it's overstimulation when you're trying to concentrate. But the cool thing is if one of the games is horrid, you could always change the channel. And I do prefer YouTube TV right now over DirecTV as they are the main provider for NFL Sunday Ticket. I enjoy that a lot on Sundays. Just wanted to make a mention of it. My biggest beef with having the dish over the years is that you get any bit of weather, especially in a state like Florida where I live, you got to go down to low resolution. It looks like you're watching a game in 1984 at that point. So, definitely prefer the streaming angle of things as opposed to the dish. I appreciate you guys hanging with me today. It was fun to talk about the entire league and share my ideas and my takes on what's happening. Until next time, I am your host, Richie, and I hope each and every one of you have a phenomenal Monday and an even better week. Announcements to come as to when we will be going live next. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.